So it says, Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana, Vayehi yemei Yaakov shnei chayav sheva shanim v'arboim u'mea shana. Yaakov lived in Mitzrayim 17 years, and the days of his life were 147 years. Now, what's interesting is that Yaakov, how old was Yosef when Yaakov left? When Yosef was sold, how old do you remember how old he was? He was 17. And then Yaakov comes to Egypt when he's 130. And he's in Egypt, and Yosef is there for 17 years, right? Another 17 years. So that means he actually gets 34 years of his life that he's with Yosef. The rest of the time is pre-Yosef time. So if you take a look at the word Vayechi, it's just interesting. Vayechi, Vav is 6, Yud is 10 or 16, 8 is 24, and second Yud is 34. 34 years he was really alive. Those were the years with Yosef. So that's Vayechi Yaakov. Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana. Now there is a opinion we'll see later on that Yosef would not, from the time Yosef got to Egypt, Yaakov got to Egypt, Yosef went to live. Yaakov was in Goshen. Yosef stayed in the palace, and he would not come to see Yaakov. He would not be alone with Yaakov in a room. He would not be alone with Yaakov, his father. And there's a source that says, one of the commentaries says, I think it's based on a medrash, I'm not positive, but he says that Yosef was worried Yaakov would ask him what really happened that day. Yaakov never knew. No one ever told Yaakov. And when Yosef, no one ever said, and Yosef was worried Yaakov would ask him, what happened that day? How did you end up in Egypt? Then Yosef would have to tell the brothers sold me, in which case it would elicit perhaps a curse from Yaakov. We've already seen the results of Yaakov's curses. Rachel died as a result of Yaakov's curse. Therefore, Yosef, for 17 years, refrains. I don't remember if it says he didn't see Yaakov after their first initial meeting, or that he wasn't alone with Yaakov after that initial meeting, because he wanted to avoid a situation where he would have to snitch on the brothers. I'll tell you something about Yosef. Now, Parshat Vayechi, you'll notice at the end of the previous parsha, it says, Vayifru vayirbu mod, page 266, right at the end. And then you'll see in the small print, right after the text on the previous page on 266, it says Beis Samach Tes is an acronym, that stands for B'Sefer Torah. And in the actual Torah, Ein Kan Piska, there's no break. That means normally in the parshas, the way the parshas are broken up, we have a tradition, they're broken up by Ezra HaSofer, broke up the parshas. And the way the parshas are broken up, there's normally spacing. In a Sefer Torah, you'll find a certain gap of a certain amount of letters worth of space in a Sefer Torah. Between Parshas Vayigash and Parshas Vayechi, there's no space. Now, why doesn't it have a gap? So Rashi says over here, there's the very first Rashi on the Parsha, on the right column, top line. Lama Parsha zu stuma. Why is this Parsha closed, concealed? Why does this Parsha not have a gap? On page back on 268. Lama Parsha zu stuma. Why is this Parsha closed off, concealed? Lefi shekevan shediftar Yaakov Avinu. Once Yaakov passed away, nistabu einehem velibam shel Yisrael mitzaras hashibud. The eyes and hearts of the Jewish people started getting closed off because of the oppression, the subjugation. The Egyptians started to subjugate them. Shehischilu l'shabdam. They began to subjugate them. That's one opinion. Now, the truth of the matter is that the real subjugation did not begin until after Yosef died. But the commentaries say that at this point, the Egyptians, who treated them with a lot of honor and completely submissiveness to the Jewish people while Yaakov was alive, they now began seeing themselves as contemporaries. So there's a subtle crack, there's a chink in the armor of the status of the Jewish people. And then after Yosef dies, the real Egyptian subjugation begins. Then Rashi says, Davar Acher, Shebikesh legalos es haketz lebanov. Yaakov wanted to reveal the end of time, with the Messianic era. He wanted to reveal the Messianic era. V'nistam mimenu. It was hidden from him. So Rashi brings on two reasons why the Parsha is hidden or closed off, because of two things that happened. The minds of the Jewish people, their hearts became closed off, and Yaakov Avinu's own prophetic vision, when he gathers the brothers to tell them everything, we'll see later on, and that gets closed off. That's one opinion. I saw one of the other commentaries says like this. You see, it's very interesting. Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, I had a guy told me this week, I heard a rabbi speaking this week, he told a story about a guy he knows, he's a rabbi who works with a lot of troubled individuals. Different people have various life problems. So this was a guy whose wife was making him miserable. Anytime I hear that, by the way, I always take it with a grain of salt. When a wife makes a husband miserable, it's usually because the husband is making her miserable, and she miserable's back. That's the truth. That's the truth. In my experience, 99% of the problems are the husband. And if the wife is not behaving the way she should, you could trace that to the husband as well. That's my experience in marriage counseling and in my own marriage and in life in general. Women will reciprocate. Women are generally good, and women are the Wall-E rebounder that I was telling you about. You know, whatever you throw at them comes back. If you treat them well, they'll treat you like a king. If the men are not like that. Men, because men tend to be more selfish and focused on themselves, a wife treats a husband well, the husband often will say, hey, this is great. If a little is good, more is better. And the husband forgets that he has to reciprocate. Women are made to reciprocate. Now, it doesn't mean 100%, it doesn't mean 100% of the time, it doesn't mean 100% of the cases, but overall, that's generally the pattern. When I find a religious couple, this does come up, where a couple it becomes religious, and the husband complains the wife does not want to parallel his religious growth. You know what that usually comes from? Because the husband is making her crazy with his religion. That's what it's coming from. The husband is being oppressive by becoming religious. That's where it's coming from. Because the husband would treat the wife properly, so the wife she would do anything. If the husband becomes more religious, if the wife is happy, she'll do anything the husband wants. And if she's not happy with it, it means because he's being religious and he's imposing his religion on her and making her life difficult with his religion. He's making her life difficult with his religion. I had a guy came to Rav Steinman. You know, you've heard of Rav Steinman. He's basically the Torah leader of the generation. And so he came to Rav Steinman. He said to Rav Steinman, you know, there's a stringency on Erev Pesach. Husbands scrape out, there's a stringency that when you're cleaning your house for Pesach, some people take toothpicks and they scrape out between the tiles on the floor to scrape out in case there's any chametz there. So he said to Rav Steinman, is that an important thing to do? Is that an important stringency? So Rav Steinman said to him, yes, it's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important you can't rely on your wife to do it. How's that for a sharp individual? Yeah, you're coming to find out what more your wife has to do. Let's say all of a sudden the guy's not going to be so, but all of a sudden it's not so important anymore. You understand? So this guy told me, hey, he had a miserable wife, and he had trouble and financial troubles, everything else. So he took him, and then they went and suddenly things turned around. He managed to get divorced. He married another woman. He's very happy, and his finances suddenly picked up. A lot of things changed in his life. He was a different person. He said to this rabbi who had been working with him, he said to him, there's only one thing. You know what? I feel that there's less of a connection, that I have less of a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because earlier, in my previous existence, when things were going bad, I was constantly davening and constantly crying. I felt a connection. Obviously, nobody wants a difficult situation. But when things suddenly improve, that connection decreases. That is true. That is true. Suddenly a person sometimes has a difficulty, and it brings out a certain level of prayer, a certain level of devotion, a certain level of reliance and dependence. And then when that's severed, so yes, you got what you wanted. On the other hand, that connection just isn't there. It's almost like studying for a test. You know, you're in overdrive. So once you take the test, it's kind of things are flat. Things are flat. Not that you want to be studying for tests, but you go into like, okay, there's nothing buzzing you. You were really buzzed up before that. So Yaakov Avinu, up until now, life has been difficult. Life has been challenging. That's the main growth of a Jew. The main growth is when life is challenging. Now, from this point on, Vayechi Yaakov is going to be in Egypt with his family, with Yosef, the reunion. There's no gap between the Parshas. There's no gap between the Parshas. It's alluding to the idea that, the growth, there's nothing really, obviously there's always something to learn from Torah, but they're trying to convey the idea, Yaakov's main growth has been concealed. It's cut off at this point. We just go on to the next Parsha. It's not like a new chapter in his life, a new chapter of growth now. The growth came when he had trouble with Yosef and Dinah and Rachel and all the other problems that he had in his life. Therefore, the Torah conceals it. That's what the commentaries say. Okay, now look at the next pasuk. Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamus. the days of Yisrael literally translates as, how does the article, the time approached for Yisrael to die, which is Yaakov Avinu. Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamus. Now, if you look at those words, okay, so the article translates the time for him came close to his time to die. But if you would translate that literally in Hebrew, how would they translate? The days of Yisrael, it came close for the days of Yisrael to die. In other words, it could have written Vayikrav Yisrael Lamus. It could have said that Yaakov came close to dying. His days were close to dying. So it's a strange little. Thank you. It's a strange little. Just a strange little structure in the pasuk. But you see, Yaakov himself wasn't close to dying. Yaakov is close to eternal life. Mm-hmm. Isn't it strange that the Parshat that describes the death of Sarah Imenu, what's it called? Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah. The Parsha that's going to describe the death of Yaakov Avinu is called what? Vayechi. He lives. And, there's something about that that's strange. He lives. It should be the opposite. Now, in modern Hebrew, by the way, there are euphemisms that we use. For example, a cemetery is called a Beis HaChaim. It's a place of the living. That's what we call a cemetery. It's called the Beis HaChaim. I know most people in the cemetery are not alive, but it's called the Beis HaChaim. A blind person is called a Sagi Nohar in the Gemara, abundant light, much light. I mean, use a euphemism when we go to the opposite extreme because we want to use a more refined terminology. But there's more. Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, because now she's going on to eternal life. That means there may be death, but it's only physical death. Vayechi Yaakov, the days of Yaakov were coming to an end. It doesn't mean Yaakov was coming to an end. Yaakov is coming to life. Yaakov is going on to eternal life now. So it's Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamus. His days were coming down. Yeah, he was given a certain amount of days to live. So those days are coming to an end. But Yaakov himself isn't coming to an end. Yaakov himself is about to go on to eternal life. So what does he do? He calls in Yosef, and he tells Yosef, I want you to make an oath. Vayikra livdo liYosef, vayomer lo imno matzasi chen beinecha, if I find favor in your eyes. Simno yodcha tachas yirechi, put your hand under my thigh. We've seen this before, gentlemen. Remember who did this? Avraham Avinu and Eliezer. Very good. Ve'asisai midi chesed ve'emes. Do a chesed and emes with me. Al nasik reidim mitzrayim. Do not bury me in Egypt. Now, when somebody is involved, there's something called a chesed. Chesed is when you do somebody a favor. There's something called a chesed shel emes. A real chesed, a truthful chesed. What is a truthful chesed? Anything you do for the deceased is called chesed shel emes, as opposed to just plain chesed. Why is that? Why is it a chesed shel emes? Why is it?
You can't get rewarded. You're doing it.
Correct. Exactly correct. There could be it's certainly not for the deceased.
Right.
You could be rewarded by other people, but if it's one-on-one, you are not going to get any payback from the deceased. There's actually there was a rabbi who was running a day school, a principal was running a day school in New York, and he had to cover about a $50,000 debt before the new year began. And he had a $50,000 debt, and he was nowhere near covering it. And he gets a call from a very wealthy donor in upstate New York. He says, coming up to see me, I've got $1,000 for you. So like, $1,000, it's not going to, but that's all he's got. So he gets in his car, he starts driving to upstate New York, hits a blizzard. It's a blizzard, a good upstate New York blizzard, near Buffalo, one of those deals. He hits a blizzard, at a certain point he has to get off the road, he can't drive anymore. So he gets off the road, and he's just looking for a shelter, and he sees something, he's got, some door's got a Star of David on it. So he pushes open the door, and things are bad to worse, he's in a funeral parlor. Pushes open the door, and there's a funeral going on. There's a funeral in this funeral parlor. So he sits down in the back seat. It's the only place he got. Okay, he's at a funeral. They're talking about old Jake Goldman, and at a funeral. Okay, so he's sitting there at the funeral, and then there are about 25, 30 people there, and then he gets up to leave. And as he leaves, there's a guest book. So for anybody who can, he signs the book at attended the funeral. Okay, about 2 weeks later, he gets a call from a lawyer. He says, "Hi. I'm the lawyer in charge of dividing up Jake Goldman's estate. Jake was estranged from his children, and he left in his will that anybody who attended his funeral should get a share of the estate. And Jake was a wealthy man, and your share comes out to $53,219.12. You know, and there he covered the budget for the school. So there are rewards. There are rewards, but you're not going to get rewarded by the person himself. It's a documented story. You're not going to get rewarded by the person himself. The person, that's a chesed shel emes. So Yaakov says to Yosef, I want you to do me a chesed shel emes. Okay, now I want you to skip ahead, and then sometime later, they tell Yosef. Starting 3 lines from the bottom. Vayehi acharei advorim ha'ele, vayomer liyosef hinei avicha chola, your father is sick. Vayikach et shtei banav v'imo es Menashe and Ephraim. He takes Menashe and Ephraim, and he comes to see Yosef. So he comes to see Yaakov. Now, ve'ata shnei banecha hanolodim lecha be'eretz Mitzrayim, your 2 sons born in Egypt before I came there, ad bo'ei lecha Mitzrayim, lihem. Ephraim u'Menashe keruven v'Shimon yihuli. Ephraim and Menashe are going to have tribal status, like Reuven and Shimon. In other words, you, Yosef, are going to be divided up into 2 tribes. You're going to be divided into 2. So now you're going to have Ephraim and Menashe, which is a way of honoring, first of all, it's a way of honoring Yosef, but it's also a way of honoring Rachel. Because what this essentially means is that Rachel takes 1 step above the other 2 wives, the 2 maidservants. In other words, Leah has the majority of the tribes. Rachel, up until this point, was tied with Bilhah and Zilpah. Each had 2 tribes. Now Yosef's going to be divided into Ephraim and Menashe, which are going to each one have tribal status. Any subsequent children will not. That's why he says the 2 children that I had before I came, your 2 children before I came to Egypt, they are now going up into Ephraim and Menashe, are now going to have tribal status. So Yosef is divided. Yosef's taken out. There's no tribe of Yosef. There's Menashe and Ephraim. And Rachel now has 3. She's got Binyamin. Binyamin is a tribe, and Menashe and Ephraim, okay, which is that Yosef divided into. So it honors Yosef and it honors Rachel. Then he says something which you must always remember, gentlemen. He says like this: those that are born afterwards will be for you. They go with their brothers. Then in Pasuk Zayin, Pasuk 7, this is it. Va'ani bevoi mi Padan, when I came back from Padan, Mesa alai Rachel, Rachel died, be'eretz Canaan, baderech be'od kivras be'eretz lavo Ephrasa, va'ekbareh sham baderech Ephrasi beis lachem. And that's where I buried her. Yaakov says to Yosef, you know, your mother died on the way, and you're wondering, I'm sure, why I didn't bring her, your own mother. Why did I bury her off on the side of the road? And why don't you bring her into the land of Israel, bury her and I'll give her a prayer? You weren't that far away. So Yaakov says to Yosef, I was told prophetically, bury her over here, because in the future, when the Jewish people go off into exile, they're going to pass by the Kever Rachel, and they're going to daven for mercy. And therefore, I was told prophetically, bury her right there at the side of the road. Now, I heard one of the contemporary Torah leaders, he says there's a very interesting idea. Again, this leaves the plain meaning, but the lesson from the Torah is certainly a life lesson. You notice that this comes right after, even though it didn't happen time-wise at the same time. The last thing we learned about in the Torah was, what was it, the first section in the Parsha says what? Yaakov tells Yosef, bury me in the land of Israel, right? Bury me in the land of Israel, which is going to be a hassle. You got to take him all the way from Egypt all the way up to the land of Israel in those days where we have to get on a camel caravan and take the body all the way up. Major hassle. Yet, your mother, who was just a stone's throw away, I buried her right at the side of the road. I didn't even bother going the short distance to bury her in a decent place. So Rav David Soloveitchik says like this, you know what the Torah is teaching you here? When you're a parent, when do you ever have to explain anything? You know, kids always go, Daddy, why? Why? Kids are always asking why. There's how and there's why. One day your kid's going to ask you, how do planes stay up in the air? Guaranteed. Take it to the bank, gentlemen. You better find out. Something about wings, air pressure, get it right. The next question is going to be, why does water stay in a straw when you put your finger at the top? Also something about air pressure. Yeah, so I'm good with the air pressure questions. Once they get to, why do things look smaller in binoculars? Then they got me. I don't know, something about lenses. I'm not sure. Something. Ask Grandpa. I never got it straight when I was a kid. So they're going to ask you how. They're also going to ask you why. Now, as a parent, should you explain to your children why? You're telling them something. Should you explain? It says, why, Daddy? Why should I do this or why shouldn't I? Should you explain to your kids? Tell you the truth. There are a lot of parents who don't. I personally have always felt I should. I always felt that it's not dignified. If a kid wants to know why he can't go alligator wrestling with his friends, I feel he deserves an explanation. Not because I said so. I don't feel that's good enough. Because I said so is good enough to make it clear to the kid that it's non-negotiable. That I'm letting you know. The decision is already made. That's not negotiable. Just because I'm willing to explain it to you doesn't mean it's up for debate. I've made a decision. The decision is final. Now, would you like to know why? I'll be glad to explain to you. Sometimes I don't have time to explain right now. I'll explain to you later. I feel kids deserve an explanation. Kid says, Daddy, why can't I go with my friends on a road trip? Well, because your friends are a bunch of drunken drivers who speed at 3 a.m. That's why, and it's dangerous. I'll give you an explanation. So there are other parents who feel, no, you don't have to explain to kids. Let kids learn to respect authority. I'm not saying which way is right or which is wrong. I'm going to tell you my policy. There's one time in life you must explain to your kids. There's one time where you must explain. You know where that is? Where you're doing something which seems to be a self-contradiction. You raise your child, you tell your child, we don't speak Lashon Hara. We don't talk about other people. We don't say negative things about other people. Then one day, your 7-year-old comes home from school, he smells like a cigarette. Why do you smell like a cigarette? What did the boys give you the cigarette? Who was it? Well, Daddy, didn't you tell me we're not supposed to speak Lashon Hara?
You smoke.
Right? Then Daddy, but you smoke? Or, very good, or Daddy, but you smoke? Or something like that. At that point, you have to explain it. Because you're caught in a contradiction. The kid doesn't know. And you're sending double messages over here. On the one hand, you're telling your kid, don't speak, don't talk about other people. Don't say anything negative. Now I'm asking you, who's the kid who did it? So you have to explain to your child sometimes, I have to know because I have to take action. I have to know because when it's for a constructive purpose, then it's not only permissible, it's required according to halacha. There's certain times when you have to, where a kid, and kids are great at catching parents out in contradictions. And parents don't like that. And that's when parents say, because I said so, right? And they slam a door or something, that means that you're defeated. So you better make sure that if you're caught in that contract, so Yaakov Avinu says to Yosef, listen, I'm asking you to bury me in the land of Israel. And I'm sure you're wondering, why didn't I do the same for your mother? I mean, I got a lot of nerve to ask you to bury me in Israel, and your own mother, I didn't bury it in the land of Israel. So I want to tell you that's why I'm explaining my actions now. I mean, why did Yaakov say that earlier? I'm explaining to you now because I received it was through prophecy. I was given a prophetic instruction to bury her now, and that's a lesson for all parents. That's when you have an obligation to explain to your children. And by the way, they could nail you. They could nail you left, right, and center. And it's not very. But you tell your kid, I don't want you spending so much time in front of the television. The father says to his kid, I want you spending too much time in front of the television. The father's saying that from in front of the television. Right? But why is it okay? I've always been amused by the movies that require parental guidance, PG, right? Or it's not okay for you to watch immorality and violence, but for me it is. I'm a parent, so I can decide I'm allowed to be involved in watching immorality and violence. For you, it's not okay. Why is it dependent on age? To the contrary, the bigger you are, the more violent you could become. I would think the opposite. Let kids watch the violence. Why adults? You're already married. You shouldn't be watching it. If you do this, you can mess yourself up big time if you see all the immorality. Why? It doesn't make any sense. Parental guidance, parents could decide how immoral they want to be. Kids are too young to decide. You understand the hypocrisy, the self-contradiction. So anytime something like that comes up, a person has to. I know a kid whose mother was very overweight, and she was yelling at the kids to control themselves. The kid says, "Mom, you're the last one who should be talking about self-control," and that's a problem. That's a very big problem. You even have the irony, the paradox of a father yelling at his child to stop yelling in the house. You ever get that one? Yeah. Don't you yell in this house! And the kid's looking at you like, what are you, a madman? What, are you out of your mind? You're telling me you're yelling not to yell? And that's the irony of a person who's out of control telling you can't, it doesn't work. The kids see right through the contradiction. They see right through the hypocrisy. I had a kid, I knew a kid who was, his father was from an Orthodox home. Then his kid joined the conservative, and the father moved out to the suburbs. And his parents joined the conservative movement. And they raised their family conservative. All right, well, Jeff goes off to university, and he comes back, and he's engaged to Maria. And Maria's not Jewish. And, the parents start talking to him, and they said, well, this or that, the other. And he says, well, Mom, Dad, don't worry about it. She's going to convert. So the father says, well, okay, just if she converts, just have her convert Orthodox. He says, Orthodox? I mean, Dad, you sent us to conservative schools. You lent us, our whole life has been conservative. What, all of a sudden conservative is not good enough? All of a sudden conservative, and the father knows it's not. The father knows that because he knows what the truth is. He was running away from it. But now he's caught in a contradiction. What are you going to say? Yeah, everything I've done is a lie. I've taught you a lie. Everything I've conveyed, it's all been a compromise. Right? It's very difficult for parents to do that. So if you're ever caught in a situation where you have a justifiable double standard, and sometimes there is a justifiable double standard, like that Lashon Hara example, in a justifiable double standard, then you have to explain yourself. That's what the Torah is teaching you over here. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk Ches. 6 lines from the bottom. Vayar Yisrael es b'nei Yosef. Yisrael sees the sons of Yosef. Vayomer mi ela, who are they? Vayomer Yosef el aviv, bonayhem asher nasan li Elokim b'zeh. Vayomer, Yaakov says, kochem na elai vavarchem, bring them to me and I will bless them. Now listen to this Pasuk Yud. This is absolutely, I don't remember where I heard of one of the guys, who told me this, I think Shalom Garfinkel, who's now in Chicago. He told, Shalom, he told me this. Listen to what he told me. Ve'ene Yisrael kavdu bizoket. Yaakov's eyes were already heavy from old age. Lo yuchal liros. He couldn't see. Ve'yagesh osam elov. He brings them, he draws them near. Vayishak lahem. He kisses them. Ve'chabek lahem. And he hugs them. So he takes these are his grandchildren. He draws them near. He hugs them and he kisses them and he hugs them. So Shalom Garfinkel told me, you always have a problem. The older generation, at a certain point, especially grandchildren, the grandparents are the parents with children. It's already you could at least try to zero in a little. Grandchildren, parents that where the children they're mishigasin and what they're involved in, and the world has changed so much since my parents' generation, my parents to my children, the gap, But there's only one way to maintain the connection. His eyes are blind; he can't see. I don't know what you're about. I know what you're up to. There's only one thing that remains. Keep them near, hug them and kiss them. That'll keep them there. That'll keep them there. That applies to parents and children as well. No matter what your children are up to, no matter what mishigas, if there's love from the parents, if the kids feel that they're loved, that the parents are there for them, you'll keep the kids there. That's the secret of success. When you look, again, I don't know how much you're aware of the problem. I keep going, I keep faking. Yeah, I don't know why I keep going right and left. We're going to see in a second the mix-up between right and left. Between Yaakov Avinu, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. If you're aware at all, often in the religious community, they struggle with these what they call kids on the fringe, or kids who are going off the path. Kids who abandon religion, but they get kids off the derech. And often the result is because the kids did not feel the warmth. My experience is that for the most part, it doesn't mean it's in every case, but for the most part, they always trace it to a father who the child did not feel he got enough love from the father. The father was so busy being religious and making the kid religious, they forgot to be a father. And what happens is kids somehow instinctively know that when they want to hit back, you hit back right into religion. Somehow they know that that's the thing that's most painful. I don't know how they know that. And the father has been pushing religion on him, and the kid finally says, you know what, that's it, I've had about enough of this. And somehow he associates with the religion, he makes every negative association with your religion made me unhappy. And that's ultimately where a kid goes off. If the parents give the kids love and warmth, I had a friend who told me the home has to be a warm bird's nest. That's what the home should be. That the kids feel the home is a home where they can. I had a kid whose father was a lawyer. This kid was way off. Way off. He wasn't off the road. He was in the gutter. And eventually he made his way back partly. His father was a lawyer, billing at $600 an hour, which is more than the rabbis make at Or Sameach. I don't know if you're aware of that, Ian. He was and that wasn't his main source of income. The main source of income was real estate. The guy was loaded out of his gills. And his son told me his father was a horrible father. He had nothing to do with it. Didn't know the first thing about parenting. And one day the kid came over to his father and put a $20 bill on the table and said, "Hey, Dad, can I talk to you for 7 minutes?" And knowing his father, he probably said, "Well, do the math, kid. It's actually $65, But and it's tragic. It's tragic. That's what happens. I heard about another kid who called his father up Father answers the cell phone. He says, yeah, who is it? He says, it's me, Shmuley. He says, everything okay? Yeah. Where are you? I'm at the park right across the street from your office. Yeah, what do you want? So I want to talk to you. Why are you calling me up? He says, well, Dad, I've been trying to talk to you for the last couple of weeks. And I noticed that, you never have time for me. But anytime anybody calls you up on your phone, then you all give them all the time in the world. So I decided I'll call you up on the phone, right? How's that for a little sting, right? So you don't want to get to that point with your kids. And often that's what I say, Yaakov, I don't know what you're up to. Kav du bizoken. I can't see you. I don't understand you. You're a new generation. Yeah. One thing is you keep them close. You hug them and you kiss them. That's what Torah is teaching you. Always keep them close. So, Vayomer Yisrael El Yosef, Re'ofanecha lo filalti. I did not even imagine that I would ever see your face again. V'hinehera osi Elokim gam ezrecha. And not only I've seen you, I've seen your offspring. Now comes the dramatic moment in Parshas Vayechi. Here comes the dramatic moment. So, it's time for the brachas. Now again. First of all, why is it that Yaakov Avinu selects the children born before he arrived in Egypt? Ephraim and Manasseh, they're going to get upgraded. And the Torah emphasizes they're the children born before I arrived in Egypt. Those children get upgraded. Why do they get upgraded? Why not anybody? In the subsequent children, they have regular status. Why is it that those children are the ones that get upgraded?
It takes more to accept Judaism before the link is farther established by having Yaakov.
Oh, very good. Exactly. In other words, what's the acid test? What's the acid test of how you've succeeded with your children? Where's the acid test? Hear what you said? Mm-hmm. Grandchildren. If your children, in other words, what your children do is not necessarily proof you've trained them. It may be proof you've controlled them. Controlling children is not hard. Controlling them is not hard. People make the mistake of thinking control is what we call chinuch, what we call educating. Controlling them is not hard. I can control my kids. All I got to do is holler, and I got complete control over my kids. Absolute, utter control over my kids. But so what? And what happens when you stop hollering? What if the kids absorb? I once wrote I started writing for a newspaper in Israel. There's the Hamodia. The Hamodia is this Jewish, the religious newspaper. So I get a call from a woman in the neighborhood to start writing a column on chinuch, educating children. So I said to her, I'm not a writer. She just said to me, just write the way you talk. I said, all right, we'll try. As I get off the phone, I said to my wife, I got called from Hamodia. They want me to write a column on chinuch. So my wife says, well, what makes you such an expert on chinuch? Mm-hmm. So I said to her, yeah, but they're paying. She said, okay, go for it. Yeah. All right. So I'm writing this column. I started writing this. It was like every 3-4 weeks I wrote this column. I did it for a couple of years. Then one night I come home. It's about 9:45 at night. And something happened. I was missing a slipper, and one of my daughters said something, and I just at a certain point, I just had a temper tantrum. I just started hollering and door banging and everything. Good all American tamper. And also one kid is running. He's flossing all of a sudden. Next one's doing his homework. Next one is in bed. Still. Okay? 5 to 10, I have to go daven Marv, 10 o'clock minyan. So I leave the house. I go daven Marv, a good kavanah davening, and I come home. And when I walk into the house, my wife is sitting on the couch. House is silent. My wife is sitting there, and I can see she's trying to hold back a smile. She's sitting there like this, like, what's so funny? She goes, well, when you left, so Plony, who was our 8-year-old son at the time, when you left, Plony looked at me and goes, and he writes about chinuch. Can't hide anything from the kids. Right? So to control them is not a problem. Control is not a problem. My kid will put on tefillin because he knows that he's going to get it from me if he doesn't put on tefillin. How do I know I succeeded? When he puts tefillin on his kid, when he's teaching his kid, when he puts a yarmulke on his child, when he teaches his child to make brachas, then I know I've succeeded. Because at the point that he's already raising his children, he's independent of me. He's not intimidated by me anymore. He's intimidated by me as long as he's not independent. Once he's independent, take a hike, old man. I'll do what I want to do when I want to do it. And therefore, if he's instilling that in the next generation, that's the proof that you've succeeded in training him, in passing on the values properly. Yaakov Avinu says, look, The grandchildren born after I come to Egypt, that's no trick. I'm here, the whole family's here, the whole mishpacha, we have the tish together a Friday night, that's not a trick. But the children born in Egypt to you, before I ever arrived in Egypt, and they came out good Jews, that's a proof. They've got a special, they occupy a special place. Because that's the proof that what I trained you was then maintained and was instilled in the next generation. And therefore, Ephraim and Menashe have special status.